fantasy is one, it's easy for me to write because I love the whole escapism of going to a different world or a different time period. And I've always loved magic. I've always wanted to be, like in my bio, I've always wanted superpowers. I just didn't want to be the average gal.
Hi friends, this is Read and Write with Natasha podcast. My name is Natasha Tynes and I'm an author and a journalist. In this channel, I talk about the writing life, review books, and interview authors. Hope you enjoy the journey. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. Today we have a fantasy author. We have Cassie Sanchez, who's an award-winning fantasy author. She's a wife and a mother of 2 boys. Her fascination for wonderment and superheroes and fantasy evolves from entertainment to obsession. She currently writes fantasy for those who want to escape to a realm of magic, love, and the battle between good and evil. Her book, I have it here with me, Chasing the Darkness, is the first in a trilogy. And it's her debut novel, and it's already won 5 awards. Wow, impressive. Cassie, welcome. So happy to have you here. So, Cassie, before we, get deep into the questions, I would like you to just tell the audience a bit about your debut novel, Chasing the Darkness, and it's from the point of view of the Angel of Death. His name is Azrael, and in Arabic we call him Azrael, which is closest to the Aramaic. So I'm just really curious about Israel or Azrael. And in Arabic, actually, we have a saying when you're mad at someone, you say, "I hope Azrael takes you," so or grabs you. So so I was really fascinated to know more about this. So without further ado, Cassie, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks, Natasha, for having me. First, just a real quick thing. It's actually Cassie, not Casey.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
That's Casey, all right. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. All right, and remind me not to make you mad because I don't want you sending Azrael after me. So
yeah, be careful.
I'm going to. I'm like, yeah, you can call me Casey anytime you want.
Okay. All right, Cassie. Okay. Okay.
So Chasing the Darkness is my debut fantasy. And Azrael, when I first wrote this, like the first draft, I actually named him Grim for the Grim Reaper because that's kind of what I thought of him. But as I was writing it, that Grim just did not flow very well. So then I Googled names for death. Google is a great thing. Yeah. And that's how I found Azrael. And so just that worked so much better than Grimm and loved it. So that's how I came up with his name. Yeah. I did not know the Aramaic part of it. So that's a very cool tie-in.
Yeah, we use it all like the word Azrael in Arabic. We use it all the time. So it's, I was actually impressed to see it in your novel.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So Chasing the Darkness is my first. The inspiration behind it actually was a video game that my kids were playing. Okay. And they were arguing, of course. So I went in to break it up. And there was a character in their video game that just really intrigued me. So, when that creativity bug just smacks you. So I sat down and I wrote a scene with Azrael in the dungeon. And that actually became chapter 4 of the book. So that's kind of how that whole thing started.
What was the game?
Overwatch.
Okay. I'm not a gamer, but my kids are, so I'm just curious, especially when you have boys. So my understanding is that this is your first time writing this. So what made you have the courage and the willpower and the confidence to actually do this? Because many people struggle with this. And, I think there are 2 types of people. There are those who talk about writing a book, and then there are those who write a book. So how did you become part of the second set of people? So what was the spark?
Well, in all honesty, Natasha, I, as and I call myself a retired stay-at-home mom because my kids have flown the coop, empty nest. And during that process, I really struggled with my identity because as a stay-at-home mom, my life was my kids and doing that job of mom. And so when that job started to switch and change, I really struggled with my purpose and who I was. And my younger son, he was the one that challenged me to write a book. So I went to a class and started learning the craft of writing. And I finally just had a fire in my belly to do this. I loved it. I was passionate about it. So I think that helped get my butt in the chair and start writing and learning. And I loved my story. I loved the characters as they started developing, and I love the world. So, I was just excited to get up in the morning and write and learn. And I think I'm just naturally a learner. I probably could have stayed in college for a lot longer, but the money was running out. So that stopped. But I loved the learning process. And so as I just continued to write and the story came together, and I don't know, I was scared to put it out there, but the first people I put it out there was to people I trusted, to be honest, yet to not say, oh, this is a great book when it was really awful. Like when they were like really saying, burn it, just burn it all. Yeah. I wanted people to be honest, but kind. So I had a few people read it, and then I sent it out to a professional beta reader and was just, on pins and needles until I got her feedback. And it was all positive. Everything I was hearing was positive. So I just kept moving forward. I thought, okay, let's put this out there and see what happens. And it's taken off. I've had a lot of positive feedback from it. It's actually now won 7 awards, which just blows my mind. I'm just shocked out of my gourd on that one. So yeah, so that's kind of how I think earning those awards and then getting the feedback just kept me moving forward, taking the criticism of what to fix and different writing different writing styles, fixing those helped me move forward. So
let's just go back in time. So you were like a big reader before you became a writer? I mean, there has to be some sort of an early spark that made you think about this. So I want to just go back in time and how did you realize that this is your passion?
Yeah. So I'm a huge reader. I read when I was younger, and then once my older son started reading, and he was reading fantasy, and then of course I read the Harry Potter books, which really kind of kickstarted the fantasy and kickstarted me reading again. And I think there was 2 years in a row where I read, 75 books in a year, which was a big number. Yeah.
My God.
So, So anyhow, I love the reading part. Now, I think when I was in high school, I remember that I thought it'd be fun to write a romance novel with dolphins in it because I love dolphins. So I went to have coffee with a friend, and she brought it up. And then that's kind of what kickstarted everything. So I think way back when I thought it'd be fun to write a book and write a romance novel. But then I just, my life took a different path. I actually graduated with a degree in marketing, which is ironic. I really hate the marketing part of the whole book.
Well, it's a good degree to have now because you can market your book.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of the spark, I think, just little, breadcrumbs here and there that I kind of remembered as an adult back when I was in high school that would be cool to write something like that. So.
Yeah. So you started reading mostly fantasy, and then why fantasy? I mean, my question is, this book is it's one of 3, right? It's a trilogy, and this is the first one. Yeah. And I know, in your bio, you said you like to escape, but why fantasy in particular? Because I don't know. I feel these days, and if you look at the New York Times bestseller, it's all romance, especially with Colleen Hoover on TikTok, blowing up on TikTok. And so, and the majority of readers are women, and the majority of writers are women. So I'm just curious because you mentioned that you were interested in writing a romance and then now you pivoted to fantasy. So why fantasy?
Yeah, it's a great question. So fantasy is one, it's easy. It's easy for me to write because I love the whole escapism of going to a different world or a different time period. And I've always loved magic. I've always wanted to be, like in my bio, I've always wanted superpowers. I just didn't want to be the average, gal. So I think part of that is kind of fulfilling that desire, if you will, to be special. And so writing fantasy, I can just let that creative outlet go and do that. I also started reading books by Sarah J. Maas, who wrote a Court of Thorns and Roses and others, Throne of Glass series. And I just loved those books because they were fantasy with a romantic subplot. And that's what Chasing the Darkness is. So it's mostly fantasy, but there is the subplot of romance. And actually, I am drawn to books with romance, whether it's romantic suspense or fantasy romance or rom-coms. I like that. I do like that genre, and I like writing that genre because I like to write that tension between the two characters, the two romantic characters. It's just fun to write. So fantasy, I just naturally gravitated towards it. It also did help that my older son, he loved reading fantasy, and I wanted to, make sure what he was reading was appropriate. So I started reading the books he was reading, like the Rick Riordan books and obviously Harry Potter. And I can't remember the other ones that he was reading, but I just really fell in love with the genre. I just thought it was just fun to have magic and sword fights and different creatures and dragons and all of that. So that's how that started.
So I want to ask you about role models. So, as a stay-at-home mom who had, the courage to, kind of step out of that role or that label and write a book, did you have a role model that kept you going? Like, let's say, an author who was also stay-at-home mom and made it. And so that helped you through your journey?
No, I wouldn't say I actually had a role model. I did have a really strong support group. So my husband, he was super encouraging, and he just kept pushing me to keep going. My two boys, I would tell, because they really are total geeks. And so I would call them about magic systems and like what would work and what wouldn't work. And so just running those ideas off of them. My mom and dad were just really excited for me. So I had a strong network that encouraged me along the way. I didn't really have a role model, so to speak, that was a stay-at-home mom that became an author. So I didn't have that, but the support system I had was really encouraging and kept me going.
Yeah, like J.K. Rowling was a stay-at-home divorced mom, and she wrote her books in a coffee shop. So you never know, you might be the next J.K. Rowling.
Fingers crossed, girl.
So I want to ask you about, now we talked about the writing journey, and now there's a huge part of publishing a book is actually the publishing journey. Mm-hmm. And very few people, people who are not writers, do not know what goes behind the scenes. So how did you publish a book? Did you find an agent? Did you go with a small press? Did you self-publish? What is your journey?
So my journey, interestingly enough, I was part of Jerry Jenkins' Writers Guild. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He wrote the Left Behind series, but he had this huge Writers Guild, which is where I learned about publishing and how to do that, where you need a query letter and a synopsis. So I had written those, but I had no idea if they were any good. So I asked Jerry, because you could email him a question, if he knew someone who could edit that for me. So he recommended someone. I had him edit it. And then he said, once you're all ready, once you get your website and your portfolio and all this done, email me your manuscript to my work address, my work email. And it was Morgan James Publishing. And I had no idea that he was part of Morgan James Publishing, but I had helped a friend launch her book through them. So they are a hybrid publisher. Okay. And so, that you have to pony up some dough. You have to be part of the investment process with them. And I didn't think they would take the book because they're mostly nonfiction and they're a Christian publisher. And my book is, even though I'm a Christian author, it is not a Christian book. It's, my main character cuts people's heads off. So
Okay.
it's definitely not in that bent. So, but that's how I found Morgan James. And then they came back and said they wanted to publish it, which I was surprised. I had just started the querying process. And I think I had queried like 6 agents, and I think they all said no. But that's only 6. There's a ton of them. But when Morgan James came back to me, they said they wanted to publish the book. I thought, well, that was my goal, was to get published. So let's give it a go and try it out. So I published with them, and it's been a good experience. I am, however, for the next 2 books, going to self-publish those. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
And why? And why is that? I want to hear.
I am so in the red right now.
I hear you.
I have spent a lot of money. I'm very good at that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
with the marketing and, well, with the investment into the book, and then, the marketing, and then, because I do really well at Comic-Cons, the fantasy genre. So, I've had banners, and I had fan packs created. I even had some t-shirts done. So I spent a lot of money in the marketing and promotion part.
Okay.
And then I recently just spent money to have Chasing the Darkness turned into an audiobook.
Oh, wow.
Which, ka-ching. So, I'm really in the hole. So it financially, it doesn't make sense for me to spend the money to publish with them again. And I can't submit the next 2 books to an agent because it's mid-series. So no one's going to pick it up unless like I got a movie deal or something and they would want to buy.
Okay.
Right. So, and now that I have a following and I've had people that have read it, and I have some, good reviews built up and on Amazon and Goodreads and Barnes and Noble, I'm going to attempt the self-publishing route and see if we can build some more momentum and get me out of debt.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny because I was listening to an interview with Cheryl Strayed and Marie Ferrolio a few years ago, and she said that while she was on tour for her book Wild, her husband calls her and he tells her the rent check bounced. And it's basically, many people assume that when you're a writer, you're very rich, and she's like, and expect you to pick up the tab, and very few people know that you're literally a starving artist. But okay. So you mentioned you already have a following. How did you build this following? How did people find you?
So I started on Instagram. Well, I created my website, and then I started doing newsletters, which that's really difficult when no one knows you. And I'm writing fiction. So I can't, like, nonfiction authors, they can provide you with information, how to, 7 ways to, whatever. Fiction authors, I think it's a little tricky. I mean, I can't give you 7 ways to, cut someone's head off. I'm going to get arrested for that.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I started writing newsletters and trying to build that following, just, asking friends and family first, hey, would you follow me on my newsletter? And then I created, my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter accounts, just started TikTok about a month ago. So that's a whole new world. And honestly, I think I joined Instagram in November of whatever year. I didn't start talking about my book until September of the following year. So I just started engaging. I started finding engagement groups. I started, just commenting and trying to build my author brand. And so if you see on my Instagram page, that's where I post the most. I have like my Monday Mayhem, which is all about my dogs, which you heard. So that creates instant content, because my husband thought it'd be funny to bring home a puppy last March. It's not funny. And so anyway, and then like on Wednesdays, I would do Wacky Fact Wednesdays. So just wacky facts about me, or, if there's any wacky facts in general. So just trying to get people to know me and for me to learn about other people and start building those relationships online and on social media. And it's just kind of snowballed from there and has grown. Now, like I said, TikTok, I just started. So that's a slower growing platform for me. I don't do a lot on Twitter because I just can't keep up with it. I just don't have the time. And then Facebook, it's growing. It's slowly getting there. I think I have 446 followers. So, that's not bad. I have over 6,000 on Instagram. So that's gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's done really
that's
well
good.
for me. So Instagram is kind of right now my bread and butter.
And what are the tips you would give to authors to grow on Instagram?
Honestly, I would tell them to engage with people. Do not talk about your book unless it's during a time when you're about to promote, or you're about to launch. But they need to be building those relationships and that platform way before they launch their book. Because if you see people who are just, constantly
Selling,
throwing their
yeah.
book in your face, you're just like, oh, it just becomes white noise. You don't really want to listen to
Yeah.
it anymore.
Yeah.
So they always talk about author brand, which I still am not entirely sure what my author brand is. I guess it's, sarcasm with coffee and dogs. I don't know. That's my brand.
Okay.
But I would tell people just to, kind of start developing a presence and interacting with people and just being genuinely authentic. And I think people really appreciate that. So that's how I would tell them to start. And, and you got to post regularly on Instagram. I think I read somewhere where Instagram, you need to post at least 5 out of the 7 days a week.
Yeah. Well, so what I noticed as someone who also tries to sell my books is there are two types of people on social media. There are people who like engage and like and whatever, but they never actually buy your books. And then
Right.
there are like the silent followers who like don't say anything, but they are the first ones who would actually pull out their credit card and buy and purchase your book. So in terms of like if you want to call it conversion, where is that coming from? Is it coming from your newsletter or so? I'm not talking about engagement. I'm talking about actual
Go back to
conversion.
money.
Yeah, actual conversion. Where is that happening?
That's a great question. You're making me think a little bit. I would say definitely with the newsletter, because those are, friends and family and people who follow me on my newsletter actually want to be there, right?
Yeah,
Because they signed up for it. So I would say that is probably, I would say, is my highest number of people who have bought my book. Interestingly, though, on Instagram, I do get tagged by people who say, "Hey, I just got your book and I'm going to start it now."
Okay.
So I would say I have a pretty fair number of buyers on Instagram. Especially, I think I will see more of that during the second book because hopefully I won them over in the first book and they trust me and they know me now.
Okay.
So that is, I would say, newsletter first, conversion rate, and then Instagram second, as far as people who will actually buy the book. It does help when I have like an ebook sale because it's not such a risk. Because I have a publisher, I can't adjust the print price of the book. Like if it's on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, that price is set by Amazon and Barnes and Noble, not by me. So I can't discount that unless I sell it of my own stock. But ebooks, I can adjust the price. So if I have an ebook sale, that makes it less of a risk for people to buy the book. So I try that every once in a while.
Interesting. So your next book is the second part in the series is coming soon, right? In a few months. When is it coming?
So I plan on launching that the end of October is the current plan.
Okay.
So by the time this airs, hopefully it's out and selling. So go buy it. Yeah. So the second book, so first book is Chasing the Darkness. The second book is Embracing the Darkness.
Okay.
So I had two routes to go with the title. I was either going to go the chasing route or the darkness route. And I obviously chose darkness.
When you first wrote the book, did you have a trilogy in mind or did that come later on?
It came later on. I thought at first I would have a duology. And then when I talked to the acquisitions editor at Morgan James, he said, trilogies sell better than duology. So you might want to try a trilogy. So that really did affect, obviously, the trajectory of this book. And, like I had in Chasing the Darkness, I had a whole different ending, and I had an epilogue that led to what the second book was going to be. And then once I decided to write a trilogy, everything has shifted. The next trilogy I write, hopefully I will have this a little bit better planned out. I've kind of gone backwards and like, oh, I need to do that, or oops, I need to fill that in, or oops, there's a hole we need to fix. So I've kind of done it backwards with this series, but I think it's working out okay.
Oh, okay. So I want to ask you a bit, this podcast, also helps writers and inspiring writers. So we talk a lot about the mechanics as well of publishing. So I want to talk about the mechanics of self-publishing. So you wrote the manuscript. Did you hire an editor?
Yeah, so with Embracing the Darkness, the second book, I first had a team of beta readers who did kind of like a flyby, right? They did I said, don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about spelling. I'm hiring an editor that I just want to know what you think about each chapter, if it makes sense. Does a magic system make sense? All of that. So I had about 10 beta readers who offered to read, a PDF of the book. And then once that came back and I was continuing to do more editing on my own, once I felt that was at a good place, then I had an editor look over and kind of do a line copy edit. Because I really am awful at grammar. I miss that part in school. I Google where to put a comma. Like, honestly.
Do you have Grammarly? Grammarly is pretty helpful.
I actually have Pro Writing Aid. I like that one a little better because it shows me. I also have a repeating word problem. So like in the first book, I would use like twitched or winked or, I'm like using it all my characters are always like, they have like some problem.
Yeah.
So I use Pro Writing Aid. But yeah, so I definitely encourage people to get an editor because even with my editor going over things, I still found things, where I made a mistake or I might have taken out a word and didn't change something to make it flow. So I actually did have an editor. And then thankfully with this second book, I had 2 people offer for free, to proofread it for me. So that has helped a lot. And I'm actually going through the final stages of going over this last proofreader's comments and making the final edits because I'm actually having the book formatted, which I'm paying for too. I'm having the book formatted on Monday. So I had someone create my cover. And thankfully I knew who she was when she did Chasing the Darkness. So all my covers will be the same. And the person who's doing Arcane covers, Karen, she's doing my cover and she's going to do the format for me, because I just don't want to mess with it. I'd rather just have someone do it for me and have it done professionally. So yeah, I recommend professional editing and I recommend professional cover because we all know we judge a book by its cover. We just do, most of us.
I'm not sure if you're comfortable talking about this, but what is kind of let's say the sum of money that self-published author have to pay out of pocket to self-publish a book? I mean, you can give me like an estimate so that people would know what they're getting into if they want to go into the self-publishing route.
It's a lot cheaper than hybrid publishing. I'll tell you that right now. But
really? Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it depends on how much editing you get because you can get developmental edits. You can get proofreading edits. You can get line copy edits, and all of those are a different price. So the line copy edit plus the cover. I had some maps drawn, the formatting. And I'm not going to, let's not include any marketing at all. And, that easily somewhere between $2,000 to $3,000, I would say.
That's it? I mean, I was expecting more because, usually editors charge more for
that my line copy edit. And that's like what I say, like if you just do a line copy edit, I think that's a cheaper edit than if you were to do like a development or a proofreading edit. So that's where the price will change. I would recommend to anyone self-publishing is to get your manuscript as polished as you possibly can before you send it to an editor, especially if they charge by the hour. I think it's important. And in that Jerry Jenkins Writers Guild, he actually teaches you how to edit so that you're not paying for an editor. I mean, he recommends you do as much as you can before you hire out an editor to fix everything. And so I think that's where I kind of lean is I'm going to try to get it as polished as possible, which is where the beta readers came in and which is also where these proofreaders came in for me that really helped me get it super polished. And then the editor, I don't want to say what her exact price is because she might raise it, or I don't know, she might be giving me a deal, but she was, I'm going to just ballpark it about $1,500 to do a line copy edit. So, and then the cover and then the maps. Yeah, I would say I'm about 2,500 in for just getting the maps, the format, the cover, and the editing. Maybe 3,000. Obviously, I'm not really good with money because I spend it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to give anyone who's listening or watching an idea of how much they need to like save or borrow or whatever in order to self-publish a book. And okay, so where do you find all these people? I mean, I know where to find them, but just for anyone who's listening, I want to know, where do you find them?
So the editor I found, and now of course I'm not going to be able to remember, but there's like a group of editors that you can find. It's like National Editing or something like that. I wish I knew. If I can find it, I'll look it up for you and send it to you. But they have a list of editors that are accredited editors that, they've done their due diligence. And so I just looked when I found my editor, and she loved fantasy. And I wanted to make sure that my editor liked my genre, because if you don't like fantasy or read fantasy, I didn't want someone editing it because they might not understand, because fantasy is a different little bird all its own. So but yeah, there's different like places where you can find those editors. And then it was interesting because I was kind of, vetting out 4 or 5, and I would send them, they asked for, hey, just send me, a chapter in the middle of the book. And then they would come back with their suggestions and their edits to see if you guys were on the same page, which I really liked, because you need to make sure you can get along with your editor and know that they're going to do the best work they can. So I did like that. As far as my cover went, again, I kind of cheated because Morgan James uses this cover artist, and I knew who she was. So then I just hired her again for the cover of the second book. I know Fiverr is a place that you can look, but a lot of times, you get what you pay for. And some of them are like, oh yeah, I can do a cover for $5. Yeah. I don't know if that's the right route to go. So yeah, I think, self-publishing, I think if you were to budget probably, and you're going to self-publish through Amazon only, you're not going to go through a distributor, then I would say anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000, just on the safe side for that.
Have you ever tried Reedsy?
I did. I tried Reedsy when I first started developing my website. So when I did my website, they hooked me up with someone, a website developer, and she did a great job. And Reedsy was very good with the follow-up. Like I had a question or I couldn't get a hold of her, which is why I switched to a different website person. But they were very good with getting back to me and following up with my website creator. So I did have a good experience in that. I haven't used any of their other services.
Okay. So you said you were like studied marketing and you somehow have a marketing guru. So did you do your own marketing or did you outsource that? And what are the tips that you would give for a starting author, a debut author who want to market their books?
Well, okay, first, when I graduated from marketing, there was no like social media. So, dinosaurs were still roaming the earth when I graduated my degree from marketing.
You look great. So
thank you. Okay. Yeah, anyway, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so I had to kind of learn the whole marketing route via internet, social media, and all that. So my tips, it's kind of been touch and go and just see what works. Like I said, some of the marketing I do a lot of posts like with Canva and, promoting my book and asking questions. That's the big one, is asking questions, especially on Instagram. You want to get that engagement. I had a huge banner made. So for my Comic-Cons, I had a really big banner made of my cover, and I had fan packs made, so that people would get excited about like the characters, or like I had a little flashlight that said Chasing the Darkness, which I thought was cute. Just, bookmarks, things like that. And really, just marketing. I think the key is I'm not really marketing my book. I'm marketing me, which is hard. That's, I think, a challenge. Like my husband's in sales, and thankfully he has a great job. So he's funding all this, but he's in sales. He can sell, ice to Eskimos kind of a thing. But for me, I am what I would call a social introvert, where I don't put myself out there, but once I'm out there, I do okay, but it's exhausting. But I learned that people are not going to buy my book necessarily because of the book. They're going to buy my book because of me. So I have to present an authentic self and let my personality, whether, like I said, sarcasm, humor, let that shine through and let people get to know me as myself, right? So that's kind of how I did a lot of the marketing, like with that author brand, was just giving people insight into who I am. And thankfully, I'm not a super private person, and I'm a fairly real person, sometimes a little too real. But I just, kept letting people in to get to know me, so that then hopefully then they would turn around and then buy my book. I did ask, I have a friend on Instagram, and I saw, she does reviews, and I just reached out to her and said, hey, would you be interested in doing a review for Chasing the Darkness? And she did. And we just keep in touch. And, you just got to ask, you got to put yourself out there. You got to develop those relationships, and, just keep plugging away and find out what works and what doesn't work. It's just trial and error a lot of the time.
Yeah, you also mentioned that you just started experimenting with TikTok. I want to hear about it. So, are you doing videos now? How do you feel about videos? And most of what's happening now with social media marketing is like video is the way to go. Even Instagram is changing their algorithm to favor reels. So where are you when it comes to, being behind the camera and, talking to the camera and videos and all of that?
Yeah. Thankfully, I think, with my marketing degree, they made you do presentations all the time. So, so I'm comfortable doing that. So being in front of the camera, I'm fine with. I don't have any problems with. And the thing for me is coming up with the content.
Mm-hmm.
It's not getting behind the camera, but saying something that people want to hear or want to like, or, are interested in. And so coming up with that content, and a lot of content, to me is a struggle. And with TikTok, I was avoiding it. I'm like, I don't want to go on it. I'm having a hard enough time managing Instagram and Facebook right now, and my newsletter and everything else. I just don't want to do it. But it's as you know, it's a huge place for people to find books. That Book Talk is a huge place. And I know my general readership is on TikTok. So I'm like, okay, if I want to be where my readers are, like Facebook is not my big area. TikTok is where my readers are. So I had to just bite the bullet and start figuring it out. And there are some webinars on how to market yourself on TikTok. But one thing that they said was TikTok is the place where you can sell your book all the time. Versus Instagram or Facebook, where you're like more about, hey, get to know me. TikTok's like, here's my book, here's my book, here's my book. So I first started just kind of doing reels that I had done on Instagram and just kind of put them on TikTok. So I'd start getting at least some content on there. So if someone looked me up, there was something there. And, I'm still learning it. I'm still trying to figure it out. I learned the other day that if you're starting out on TikTok, be careful what you are scrolling through, because TikTok's algorithm will just keep, like, if you land on dog pictures or dog videos, TikTok sees that and they're going to keep sending you TikTok or dog videos. Well, I want to make sure I'm on book stuff, romantic fantasy stuff, fantasy things. So I got to be careful what I'm scrolling, what I'm looking through, so that the algorithm keeps working in my favor. And I still don't have a true concept of it, but I'm plugging away, trying to come up with content and do the videos. Again, with the like if you were to go to my TikTok page, you're going to see some videos where I look like this. And then there's other videos where my hair is like in a knot on the top of my head and I have not a stitch of makeup and it's like, good morning, whatever, So again, that's that authentic part. People might not enjoy that. I don't know. But, I'm just trying to get a presence there. I'm trying to find the fantasy readers on TikTok. And the people who do reviews of fantasy and or romantic fantasy, and trying to find them and follow them. And eventually I'm going to reach out to some of them and say, hey, would you be interested in reviewing, either Chasing the Darkness or Embracing the Darkness, depending on where we're at with that. So
What
That's a
kind of
lot.
content? What kind of content do you push on video? Just curious.
On video. So again, my Monday mayhems are with the dogs. So I always do dog posts because everybody loves dogs. So, and they're funny. I mean, I've got some really funny ones with the two dogs that I have. And I will do a review of a book I read. So like I did a recent one about Daisy Jones and the Six. I don't know if you've by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I don't know if you've read that. It's excellent audiobook. So, I just did a quick review of what I thought of that book. I sometimes I'll ask a question, like I asked, hey, do you like audiobooks versus ebooks? And discuss a little bit about that. You don't want them super long. People's attention span, I think, has been likened to that of a goldfish now. So
Yeah.
you need them quick. I think one guy said between 7 and 15 seconds is how long yours should be until you get like, I think, a real strong following who they know that they want to stay in for the 30 or 45 seconds that your video is. What else have I done videos on? I sometimes with my newsletter, I'll do a YouTube video on my newsletter. So I might add that in. I did a 3-part series on Pandaren, which is the world that my book takes place in. So I did a 3-part, like I was a travel agent, like, welcome to Pandaren,
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I did that. I'm going to do one soon with how to pronounce the names in the book and how those names came into being. So I'm going to do that. But again, a lot of that is, this is the hard part is, I feel, because they say as an author, you need to be writing every day, right?
Yeah.
That's easy to do when you're actually working on a book. But like I've finished essentially Chasing the Darkness, and I'm almost finished with Embracing the Darkness. And so now most of my time is spent on marketing, whether it's engaging in social media, whether it's trying to come up with content and creating that content and getting it out there, whether it's, figuring out a timeline for marketing or launching the second book. I mean, there's so many things. And that's where, if you're traditionally published, you get to write and they get to do all the other work for you, which is lovely, but
not really. I mean, even traditional publishers now, they make you do the work, honestly.
Yeah, they do. Actually, they do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just coming up with the content is very time consuming, and I'm trying to figure out. I know I'm most creative in the morning, so I'm trying to figure out a schedule where if I could write in the morning and then in the afternoon do the business side of being an author, whether that's have a day where I'm coming up with content like I used to on Sundays, get all my Instagram posts ready to go, and so that way Monday morning I hit boom, send it off and it's gone. So I'm trying to get a little more organized with that. Not super successful in that area, but I'm trying.
So you write every day?
Nope. I wish I did. I would love to get back into it. I would love to start writing the 3rd book is what I would really like to start working on. But with the launch of the second one coming up pretty quick, I need to first I need to finish the second one completely. And so I'm hoping to get started. I would love to get started writing on it sometime in the next month or two, because that's what I truly do enjoy. Well, let me preface that. I don't actually like writing the first draft.
Yeah, I know.
First draft stresses me out.
It's the hardest, yeah.
Once that's done, then I love getting into the rewrite and the edit part. I love that part. But I want to get back into it and get back into that writing. So I don't know how other authors do it where they're writing every day. I feel like I'm a very type A person. So I'm like, I need to get this done before I can move on to this, which might not be, that is not conducive to those people who like write, and get books out every couple months. Like it's taken me a year, to get the second book written and ready to go. So,
yeah. So before we conclude, do you have any tips for aspiring writers, specifically for, let's say, a woman writers or mothers or stay-at-home mothers who, like you, wanted to, find their identity and, find something after, the kids are grown up and they think their passion is in writing? What do you tell them?
Well, first I would tell them, go for it. Don't let fear hold you back. Don't let fear of rejection and that's easier said than done. But don't let perfectionism. I think so many women struggle with perfectionism, wanting it to be perfect. And I would just encourage anyone who has the desire to write, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a full-time mom, full-time worker, whatever, sit down and carve out whatever time you can to have that time for yourself and write, and not worry about what you're putting on the page, so to speak, because the first draft is awful. It's a mess. It's not supposed to be good. I think Stephen King says the first draft is for behind closed doors. It's for you only. And then once you start working on it, then you can get it out to other people to look at it. But sit down in that chair and start writing, and also start learning the craft of writing. I was delusional when I thought, well, I read so many books, I obviously could write a book. Two totally different sides of the brain. So learn the craft, and while you're learning, start writing. Don't wait till you think you have it all together to write a book, because you're never going to have it all together. You're never going to be, there's always more to learn. So just start trying to figure out what your writing style is and what you're passionate about, and start writing, and carve out that time. And for those who are stay-at-home moms, if you can, and I didn't do this, but if you can, try not to let your identity be completely wrapped up in your children, because eventually they're going to leave. Hopefully, if you did your job right, you've kicked them out of the bloody house, right? So hopefully they're out, and then you've got to reinvent yourself. And so start reinventing yourself now while they're still there, so that when they're gone, it's not such a huge transition.
Yeah, that's true. But then there's the mommy guilt, and the bad mom, and it's the selfish mom, and all of these things that mothers have to deal with if they want to pursue other stuff while their kids are young.
Right. Finding that balance. You got to find a balance.
Yeah. But this has been great, Cassie. Yeah. I'll try not to send
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, of course. Any last words, any last thoughts before we conclude?
I'd say if you want to know more about me or about the books, go to my website, which is CassieSanchez.com, CASSIE Sanchez.com, or follow me on Instagram.
Or TikTok.
Find me. Usually it's Cassie Sanchez, author, on those. So go to TikTok and like my stuff. Come on.
I'm gonna go there now.
All right, thank you.
Well, this has been wonderful.
The best place to find me. So
thank you very much, and for everyone who's listening or watching, thank you very much, and until we meet again.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.